I was broke, with no money, no gear and no reputation. I set out for the lands of Albion, in search of fortune, fame and a new life. In this game, you can be a farmer, hunter, gatherer, crafter, build a home and live a quiet life. Or you can dive into dungeons, fight monsters, collect loot, explore the mists and duel other players. I'm a complete beginner and I'll be doing it solo. I'll try every aspect of the game and show you exactly what Albion is for someone who usually prefers PvE content. This is the story of my first 100 days in Albion Online. Day 1. I woke up on a beach surrounded by wreckage. Following a path, I came across another survivor. He explained that we had been attacked by bandits. He urged me to climb the lighthouse, in hopes of spotting the remains of our ship. From the top, I could see it in the distance, but the bridge leading there was blocked by bandits. The crafter said there were heretics, and I would need a weapon to face them. I searched the area for stones and logs. With these, I made my way to the blacksmith. Together, we forged a beginner's broadsword. As I equipped it, I had to choose one of two spells, a single target dash or an area clearing strike. I chose the latter. The crafter handed me a shield. It was time to fight. I opened the gate and crossed the bridge where the ruffians waited. Using the special attack, I struck them all at once. The job was done. This unlocked the destiny board, a web of nodes that showed my progression and skills. Each one required fame to unlock. Combat fame from defeating enemies, gathering fame from collecting resources, and crafting fame from creating gear. I made my way toward the ship to find the rest of the crew. Close by, I met Captain Tia. She explained that the ship could be repaired, but would need supplies. First, I had to get a mount from the marketplace. I bought a mule for 3 pieces of silver. Riding it made it travel much faster. But with the crafter Silas, he sent me to the toolmaker. I needed a pickaxe and an axe. To craft them, I had to get more wood and stone. Once I had gathered enough, I returned and built the tools. Now I could access the world map. It showed the entire continent of Albion, divided into zones. Some were PvE, others PvP. The area I was in was a safe region. No one could attack me here. The different zones feature different biomes, each containing unique resources. To get the ship running again, we needed wood, leather, iron, and cloth. First, I headed into the forest to gather logs and hunt foxes. Going there, I found one. It took several hits to bring it down, but one fox was enough to get the materials I needed. After cutting the wood, I had everything from the forest. Next, I made my way into the mountains to collect copper ore and cotton fiber. With all of these resources gathered, it was time to refine them. I smelted the ore into copper bars, tanned the hides into leather, processed the logs into planks, and lastly turned cotton fiber into cloth. With these materials, the ship was repaired. But before we could set sail, the captain gave me one more task: to attack an enemy outpost. Before heading out, I won learning points. Once I passed a certain line, I could use learning points to complete a node, cutting down the amount of fame needed. Learning points could be earned by completing daily activities. I reached the enemy outpost and began fighting the bandits, one after the other. Eventually, I reached the learning point threshold of the combat node. I spent the points to unlock trainee fighter level 1. Back with the captain, she told me I would need a proper novice gear to infiltrate the enemy fort. Albion has a classless system. You are what you wear. At this point, I had 3 paths to choose from: plate armor, medium armor, or mage armor. I could craft or buy any set I wanted, but the marketplace prices were too high, so I gathered the materials myself. I turned logs into planks and crafted a bow. For the armor, I needed a lot of hide, which meant hunting foxes. Once I had enough, I tanned the leather and crafted a full hunter's set: jacket, shoes, and hood. It looked pretty good. With everything ready, I returned to the captain. This would be the final mission. My job was to cause enough chaos in the main base to draw attention away so the ship could sail past unnoticed. I rode toward the mountains and reached the enemy fort. A fight began immediately. I started picking off enemies, dodging ballista shots as they launched massive projectiles. The bow and arrow were amazing. Once the area was clear, I lit the signal fire to call the ship. I met with Tia at the dock. Our time on this island was over. It was time we sailed away to Albion. I had multiple destinations to choose from, each offering different materials to harvest. I chose the Forest Cross. Arriving at the dock, I talked to a royal soldier who sent me to speak with our commander. Doing so granted me 3 days of premium. This basically included faster game progression, rewards, and some extra features. I extended this to 30 days and proceeded with the next set of quests. The first task was to take a stroll through town. I explored all the different crafting stations. There were more than a dozen of them. Second task was focused on combat. It involved finishing a royal expedition. I approached a strange energy portal and spoke with the expedition master. There was one available. I selected it and got teleported to a dungeon. The objective was to clear a specific number of enemies, all within 1 hour. First, I encountered a swarm of rats and cleared them out with my bow. Moving deeper, I engaged the poachers one by one, until I killed the 4 required. Further inside, I came across the fire starters. They hurled fire spells at me, forcing me to dodge their area attacks, but they weren't much of a threat. After defeating the 4th deranged Farcaster, I unlocked a new mastery. Defeating mobs increased something called River Tier. Each tier increased my damage and defense against mobs of that level. As I continued fighting, I reached a learning point for the Journeyman Hunter node. Using 2 points, unlocked that mastery, which will let me use Journeyman's weapons in the future. I also did the same thing with the Leather Armor mastery. Deeper in the dungeon, I faced a pyromaniac who conjured a spinning flame on the ground. I kept moving to avoid it and brought him down with my arrows. Doing so granted me a reward I could claim, a Master's Dome of Insight. It granted me 50,000 combat fame in use. This unlocked tons of masteries. One after the other, they didn't stop coming. Moving on, I dealt with some scavengers. They didn't put off much of a fight. Finally, I reached the boss of the dungeon, the Overseer. He had a special attack, using his whiplash, which had quite a long range. He managed to land a few solid hits, dropping my health lower than any other mob, but in the end, I came through victorious. The expedition was complete. Returning to the commander, I received a reward, another Tome of Insight. Using this added fame to my equipped gear. With it, I got quite a few masteries. Basically, I was now able to use better versions of my equipment, but I needed to craft or buy them first. Moving on to the next quest, this one focused on gathering and crafting. Talking with the royal crafter Silas, he recommended me to focus on 1 or 2 resources within the same biome to be more efficient. In Albion, every weapon, piece of armor, and building was at one point a player-gathered resource. I could choose from fiber, wood, stone, ore, or hide. I decided to start with wood, since I would need it to craft better bows and tools. First, I made a novice axe and equipped it. Then, I headed northwest to the forest and began cutting trees. I had to collect birch and chestnut. After gathering a good amount, I became overloaded, which led me to store my things at the bank to free some space. While cutting a few more logs, I completed a mission. They functioned as achievements. This one rewarded me with some silver. Once I got all the wood, I returned back to Silas. Next task was to refine the logs into planks, which I did at the lumber mill. Another way of progressing my crafting was to study items. Doing so would consume the item, but reward me instead with a boost in fame. Next task was about the open world. I needed to equip tier 3 equipment in order to tackle the next dungeon. First, I needed some more planks to make a Journeyman's bow. I thought this was enough, but I was still missing the unlock in the Destiny board. Turns out I had the mastery to use it, but not to craft it. I still needed a lot of fame to unlock that. It was time to practice. I made hundreds of birch planks, which I used to craft novice bows and study them, consuming the item and rewarded me with fame for it. Doing it once more made me unlock the mastery. I finally created the bow myself. Before continuing, I want to thank Albion Online for sponsoring this video. Honestly, I had a great time with the game. I'd always been curious about it, and this was the perfect opportunity to jump in. It's free, available on PC and mobile, and fully crossplay. Be sure to check it out and download it using my link below. It really helps support the channel, and I assure you, you'll have a lot of fun with it. Next, it was time to make the Journeyman's armor set. Normal leather wasn't enough, it required a thicker one. To make it, I needed to get a new type of material, thin hide. It was tier 3. My skinning knife was only tier 1. To make a better one, I had to get more copper. So, I mined some ore next to the smelter, which I turned into bars, and used it to make a new knife. Heading to the forests, I tried skinning a fox, but it only gave me rugged hide. I thought I maybe needed a tier 3 knife. Turns out I was wrong, because Next, as I wandered through the forest, I had to fight a wolf, which granted me thin leather. This was what I needed. I ended up hunting dozens of them until I got overloaded. Back in the city, I crafted the thick leather and then made the full journeyman's armor set. One objective still remained: equip tier 3 equipment. It didn't specify what, so I thought maybe I needed a tool. Time to find some tin ore. I first explored the Red Lake, but found nothing. Next, I tried birch copse, but nothing either. Since there was no ore in the forests, I tried looking south, going to the Cracked Earth area. This was home to different creatures. A cougar began chasing me as I rode around. After taking it down, I skinned the animal and got Journeyman's animal skinner. Right next to me, I found the tin ore. While mining some more and fighting the cougars, I happened to complete a daily objective, rewarded me with another tome of insight. I even came across a mole bird, which also gave thin leather. Once I gathered all the materials, I returned back to town. I finally was able to make tons of bronze bars. Just as I was leaving the smelter, I came across two warriors battling out in the middle of the town center. Next, I crafted some chestnut planks. Now, all that remained was unlocking the recipe on the destiny board. To do that, I needed more fame, so I began crafting novice tools and studying them for additional progress, until I finally got the mastery. I was able to craft the tools, but there was a catch. Some of the icons were red. I couldn't equip those yet, since I required the mastery to use them. For example, I needed to gather tons of copper, or better, for the journeyman's pickaxe. I was also missing a few more chestnut planks, so I returned to the forest to gather more wood. It didn't take long before I was able to spend learning points to unlock Journeyman's Lumberjack Mastery. I continued gathering chestnut until I had everything I needed. After crafting some planks and smelting some ore, I finally had all the materials required to make tier 3 tool and equip it. For some reason, this didn't complete the objective. Turns out, what I needed wasn't a tool, it was a cape. And to craft it, I would need neat cloth and thick leather. I processed some leather, but to make neat cloth, I first needed flax, along with cotton for the base cloth. I traveled back to Cracked Earth to gather both. After a long while grabbing the quantity I needed, I returned to town, where I finally made the cape and also a bag. This significantly increased my maximum carry weight. I also earned something called a community token, though I wasn't sure what it was used for yet. Finally, the objective was complete. Now, I was ready to go to the dungeon. Using the map item from my inventory, it revealed a hidden entrance located in Stackboard. It was recommended for 2 to 3 players. I wanted to see how I would go solo. On my way to the dungeon, I passed someone fishing off a bridge. Had no idea that was possible. And then a player appeared with a huge bear mount and looked incredible compared to my little donkey. I kept riding and reached what looked like a fortress. Took out some rats without any trouble. But then I ran into one of the cutthroats. This guy was surprisingly tough. His health wouldn't go down. I threw everything I had at him, but it wasn't enough. I was getting shredded and had no choice but to run. Once I healed back up, I tried my luck against a woodpecker. This one gave a fair fight, but I managed to kill him. What caught my attention was that all these enemies had some sort of symbol above them. Not sure what that meant. After defeating a spellcaster and a goon, I rode straight to the dungeon entrance and went inside. First enemy went down easily, unlocking some masteries. That's when I realized the objective said I still had to enter the dungeon. I thought maybe this wasn't the place I was meant to enter. Once I exited the cave, the entrance was gone. I had messed up, had to go back to the town, restart the quest, and go to the new location at Red Lake. Inside, I fought a few bandits, but let my guard down in the process, getting dangerously close to dying. Interacting with some sort of altar, it granted me a buff, reducing the cooldown of all my abilities. With that, I went on a rampage. The bandits didn't stand a chance. I even came across a second one. The dungeon was quite big. I spent a while clearing out all the enemies. At one point, I came across a shooter who was guarded by 2 brawlers. They looked intimidating, but weren't much of a threat in the end. The ground had some sort of sign. Crossing a bridge, I fought off 2 spellcasters and a bouncer. This encounter was tricky because the mages were constantly healing the fighter. I had to take both of them out first before I was able to defeat the warrior. Finally, it was time for the boss fight. This one was really difficult. He had multiple special attacks. One of them was a deadly spinning swirl that almost wiped me out. I was really close to beating him too, but I had to hide behind the table to heal. This reset his health completely. Time for round 2. With the boss finally defeated, the dungeon was complete. I leveled up tons of masteries, got Bow Fighter to level 6, unlocking a new spell where each auto attack restored 1 energy point. Then I looted my first dungeon test, got some silver, a cowl, satchel and a bag. Back with the commander, I completed the quest. I could now choose my own path. The basic tutorial was finished. The world was a sandbox. I could become a gatherer, a warrior, a farmer, anything. One of the available quests was to speak to a shady person. Doing so gave me some sort of gold coin. I could sell this at the gold market for silver. You could even see the value over time, like a real stock market. Selling a single coin got me 7,000 silver. Next task was to visit a proper city and speak with a local royal explorer. Lemhurst was the closest one all the way northwest. Once I arrived, Lena told me to check the guilds. I could filter them to match my personal playstyle. There even was a beginner recommendations tab. Just like in the first town, I took a stroll around here too. There were so many players in this city, and the size of some of the mounts were massive. Lemhurst had all sorts of stations. I could enchant items, repair gear, and even join a faction to be part of the continent-wide war. But what caught my attention the most, I could buy my own personal island, a place to build a house, start a farm, and even hire laborers. Now we were really opening up the game. While exploring, I also checked out the Conqueror's Hall. Inside was something called the Realm Gate. If I chose to enter, I could head into the Outlands, where full loot PvP was always active. We'll take a look at this later. There was also something called Siphon Energy I could trade and participate in the Crystal League. Next, I came across the Arena, a place to train my PvP skills in a non-lethal environment. Lastly, I stopped by the City Bank. I couldn't believe the sheer amount of players there. The names were just stacked on top of each other. Back with the commander, I finished all the tutorial quests. Now it was time to make my own path. First thing first, I used all of the tomes I'd been saving up until now. Tons of masteries were unlocked. But most importantly, I reached Expert River. I was now able to use expert bows and a full set of expert armor. With the world now wide open to me, I set my first personal goal: get my own island, a place to call home. By paying 20,000 silver, I was the owner of my own little piece of land. Checking the place out, it had a chest to store my stuff, but nothing else, just empty space. I spent a long time figuring out how to enter the build menu. There were tons of options, a wide variety of things. I decided to start simple, make a house. Doing so would allow me to hire laborers who I could send out to work. I placed the foundation down, paying 100 silver. Now came the building part. For that, I needed 30 rough logs, 3 rough stones, and 180 limestone blocks. Time to get to work. I first visited Birch Copse, where I ran into undead. I was able to take one of them down, but when 3 of them came at me, they wrecked me, knocking me down to the ground. I didn't seem to lose any items though. After a short while, I simply got back up. Only lost some durability on my gear, I think. Then I remember this area didn't have much ore, so before heading back to Cracked Earth, I made a quick stop at the market. I figured it was time for a better mount. I picked up a journeyman's riding horse for around 8,000 silver. Now we were ready. Time to get some limestone. I rode over to Cracked Earth, but there wasn't any in sight. Turns out Stagborn Forest was the real spot. Once I got there, I started mining. Had to circle the area looking for the right spots, and once I found them, I had to stand there, waiting for the ore to respawn. After a good while of grinding, I finally gathered the required amount. Along the way, I chopped down some trees for rough logs and picked up a bit of stone too. Back on the island, I placed down the logs and stone, but then realized I needed limestone blocks, which meant I had to refine what I gathered. So I rode all the way back to the first town, thinking there were no crafting stations in the city. Turns out there were. I realized this later. Once at the stonemason, I got the limestone blocks, returned to the island, and finished building my own home. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was mine. There were lots of different laborers I could hire, but my current space could only house one of them. To upgrade this, I needed to provide more and better materials. Before that, I wanted to make my first hire, but to do that, I needed money, a proper job. Heading to the marketplace, I noticed selling hide wasn't a bad gig at all. Just from a couple of hides I'd taken from some wolves, I could make 1600 silver, so I did. Now, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing, and I didn't know which laborer was the best pick, if any. So I just chose one and hired the novice gamekeeper. I had to wait 30 minutes before he could actually start working. I also saw I could buy empty journals from him. It seemed I had to get one, fill it by gathering hides, and hand it over so they do their job. So I took a novice gamekeeper's journal and set off. Time to do some hunting. I went to Stackborn and began working. As I skinned the different animals, my journal was being filled. I kept doing this for a while until my skinning knife broke. I was able to get hundreds of hides though. Back at the market, I sold everything off. Instead of fixing my old knife, I went ahead and bought a better one, a tier 3. I rode to Birch Copse, where I found boars. This gave medium hide, a tier 4 material. But something strange got my attention. Tier 2 rugged hides were worth 73 silver, tier 3 thin hides 95, but tier 4 medium hides only 61. So thin hides were actually more valuable than medium hides. But I also noticed that tier 5 heavy hides were worth much more at the marketplace. I ended up selling all the hides and called it a day. While exploring the Destiny board, I checked out the Skinner Crafter Mastery. To progress, I needed to craft skinning knives to gain fame. The rewards were outfits that increased gathering yield, but that was to craft them, not to wear them. To be able to equip those, I needed the Adept Animal Skinner Mastery, which required the gathering hide. Back to my island, I talked with Arnold, the gamekeeper. He was ready for work. I handed over the full journal, but then a message popped up. Not enough yield to start the job. Turns out his happiness was at 0. He needed a bed and a table to be happy. Poor man. That's when I realized this city had all the crafting stations I needed. I stopped by the toolmaker, and sure enough, I could craft furniture. Altogether, I needed 40 birch planks and 50 simple cloth. Off to the forest I went. Once I gathered wood, I traveled to cracked earth for some cotton. While doing so, I unlocked the mastery for tier 3 fiber tools. I kept gathering as much as I could. Figured it wouldn't hurt to have a good stockpile at the bank for later. That is, until my novice sickle broke. Back in the city, I refined the cotton into cloth and the birch logs into planks. By spending focus points, I was able to save a lot of resources. I ended up making more than I would have otherwise. By the time I was done, I had so many materials that my horse could barely move. Made a quick stop at the bank to unload everything. Finally, I crafted a bed and a table. With that, Arnold's happiness would start going up. I just needed to give it some time. While that happened, I focused on my next big objective, building a farm. I would be able to get a wide variety of crops from it, and that meant profit. I tried setting up a place for it, but it didn't let me. While looking around, I found some training dummies. Here I was able to test my build, see how much damage per second I dealt. Pretty useful. To be able to build anything else, I needed more plots. And to get more plots, I needed to upgrade the island. That cost 500,000 silver. I only had 19k. While I was hunting, I realized that skinning boars gave more fame than wolves. At one point, I came across an uncommon medium hide, which I wasn't able to skin. It required an adept knife. I ended up hunting anything I came across, both boars and wolves. Spent a while there, until I was completely overloaded. At the marketplace, I realized that instead of just selling something, I could post a sell order, which was much more profitable. Selling my thin hides would get me just 26,000 silver, but posting a sell order would get me 38,000. I decided to do that, of course. I just had to wait for a buyer to pay for it. After this, I bought a journeyman's ox. This was a different kind of mount. It would let me carry more things with me, avoiding getting overloaded as long as I was close to it. The speed was slower, but worth it for the benefits. I resumed gathering hide. While doing that, I tested out another bow spell called Frost Shot. It fired an explosion that pushed me away. Could be very useful in PvP. At some point, I gained a reputation level. From my understanding, this gave a small defensive buff in PvP zones against hostile players. It was also a way to show I wasn't looking for any trouble. Finally, I reached the learning point for Adept Animal Skinner. Paying 35 points let me unlock the mastery. Now I would be able to use a tier 4 knife and skin tier 5 animals, but also wear the Skinner outfit, which would allow me to gather more resources. Back to the market, I bought the new knife and gear. While equipping it, it had a new set of spells I could choose from. Most of them were for getting out of trouble, in case someone wanted to kill me in a PvP area. One that got my attention was an invisibility spell called Ambush, which increased my damage the longer I stayed invisible. There was even a dodge spell. Checking the buy orders, there were none running at the moment. It seems someone bought my hides. It was so much more worth it this way. Now it was time to go after tier 5 animals, so I headed north to a new area called Okops. The place had new enemies called Knifelings. They were giants. One of them was an axe maiden. I could barely do any damage to her. She looked like some sort of mini boss. The other minions, although they looked big, were not that hard to kill. Exploring around, I came across some sort of floating portal called Hellgate. It said a 2v2, I guess it was PvP. I would dive into that later on. Roaming the area, I mostly ran into wolves and boars, until I found a bear. The fight was tough. The animal dazed me and dropped my health to half, but in the end, I took it down. This time, I got heavy hide, way more profitable. Over 400 silver for just one. For comparison, wolf hide sold for about 100. While I was out hunting, I decided to try my invisibility spell for the first time. Turns out, it wasn't unlimited. It only lasted a few seconds, even if I stood still, and it had a pretty long cooldown. Still, useful to get away if I needed. I kept hunting, but I soon realized my damage wasn't great. That's when it hit me. I'd completely forgotten I could wield better gear. Back at the market, I bought an expert longbow. My old one had a 47 DPS, this one 61, plus some new spells. The rain of arrows was really impressive. Later on, I came across a strange creature. It was a treasure drone. It was holding a chest of sorts. Taking him down got me tons of loot, including runes, silver, shards, and souls. No idea what they were for though. Exploring the northwest, I came across a yellow PvP zone. Here, hostile players could attack and knock down others. All my items on my character were safe though. I couldn't die, just get knocked down. Also, non-hostile players gained a defensive buff. I decided to give it a try. Honestly, I had no trouble here at all. I got into a fight with a pikeman, and that earned me expert adventurer mastery. The mobs in here were quite hard though. I had to escape at one point because they were tier 6. Then a will-o-wisp was close by. It looked like a small ball of energy. Interacting with it opened a portal called the Mists. It was also a yellow region. I wasn't fast enough to get in and it closed. While taking the destiny board, I realized there were a huge variety of bows. Currently, I wielded the longbow, but there were also war bows, whispering bows, and more. Have to try those soon. Next time I logged in, I seemed to have unlocked faction warfare. I could enlist with one of the factions. I visited the local captain and enlisted with Limhurst. If I enabled faction flagging, I could fight against members of rival factions. But in order to get serious in PvP, I needed to buy some good armor. What I had no clue about was which set to go for. There were so many options that I was overwhelmed, and they cost a lot of silver. That was another reason to gather a good amount of money. I also wanted to try out different weapons. I was interested in dual swords, but to be able to wield that, I needed to train using a single broadsword, which I bought. Using a tome, I was able to get enough fame to get a mastery, unlocking Sword Fighter. With this, I bought some adept dual swords and equipped them. I tried them out while hunting. They were not bad at all. The jump was amazing. I could launch myself straight into the enemy, doing a spinning attack. Had a lot of mobility. I felt like a killing machine. I went back and forth with the longbow, but melee was catching my interest. Exploring the destiny board, I realized there were also daggers. I bought one at the market, but I wasn't able to dual wield them. To do so, I needed to train with just one until unlocking the necessary mastery. After using another tome, I bought the dagger pairs. They were much faster than the dual swords, and I was able to jump from one side to the other. I continued trying different weapons while hunting. I even bought different bows. The bow of Badon cost almost 100k. That was almost all of my silver. There was a weapon called Death Givers, which cost even more than that. I ended up returning to the tier 5 area to hunt some bears. The dual swords were my favorite, great damage and mobility. Back at the market, I learned that there was a food that increased gathering yield by 15%, called pork pie. I bought some since they were really cheap. Heading back to Oak Copse, I equipped the pie. It took me a while to realize I actually needed to use the item, not just equip it. That activated the gathering bonus. While working, I came across a portal that said Road of Avalon. I checked the map but found nothing with that name. The thing had a skull next to it. I didn't want to risk all my gear right now, so I kept going for the moment, hunting, while also opening a daily chest reward. I tried the yellow areas again. I didn't find them to be any better for skinning, honestly. The zone was still pretty populated with other players. When respawning, the animals needed some time to recharge the amount of hides they provided, otherwise they gave much less. For example, 1 instead of 5 in case of the bear. After selling everything in the city, I thought about how to farm more efficiently. I needed to get 500,000 silver to upgrade the island, so I thought about going to a red zone. That meant full loot PvP. Before jumping in, I visited my island. Checking with Arnold, he was happy now. I was able to give him the journal. It said he would be able to return maybe 38 rugged hides. That was not good, but at least it was passive income, I guess. I put him to work. This made me complete a mission, which rewarded me with a stone throne I could place. Interesting look. After this, I emptied almost all my inventory, traveling with just the bare minimum. I also tried my new spells. One was a wind push. Another one, an emergency shield. And lastly, a speed buff. Then I finally went to the red zone. Turns out that I had to go through something that looked like a dungeon. There were some tree creatures just standing there, but no players. Once I crossed this, I arrived at the actual zone, where I began hunting bears. Turns out they still didn't have full hides. This area was probably still pretty contested with other hunters. This was not any better than hunting in the safe areas, and I ran the risk of losing everything. Before giving up, I decided to go to even deeper red zones. Finally, at Nightbloom Forest, I found bears with full 5 of 5 hides. I could work in peace, or that's what I thought. At the bottom of the minimap, you could see the amount of players who were murdering others. The number got really high, so I decided to just go back to the city. After selling my stuff, I reached over 300,000 silver in my pocket. At this point, I wanted to check out different areas of the continent, so I bought a ticket to Bridgewatch, the steppe region. It had different animals to hunt. For example, terror birds, which gave heavy hide, same as the bears. I got a little confused because there were also moe birds, which looked alike but were smaller. I tried gathering some fiber at the same time, hemp mostly. A portal appeared close to me. Going inside, I got teleported to the mists. This area was mystical, full of mushrooms and a bluish tone. I fought an animal that looked like a saber-tooth, but different. Not only that, I ran into a huge magic owl. It had a big area attack rushing forward. It was tough, but worth it for the hide. I was overloaded, so I had to return to Bridgewatch to sell everything, and also bought a tier 5 ox. The mists wasn't a bad place to hunt, so I returned once more, for a cougar this time, got 5 hides. This actually seemed like the perfect place to work. The whole area was super calm and peaceful. I even stopped by a lake for a moment to observe how the fish swam in a circle. The bad thing was, I didn't really find many animals here. Had to roam around quite a bit, but at least there was no one else than me. At one point, I managed to complete a mission, which rewarded me with the wardrobe skin, an innkeeper's hat. I unlocked it, and I could apply the skin whenever I wanted. It didn't change my equipment, just the visuals. Right next to me, there was an open PvP area. If I crossed the line, anyone could attack anybody without penalties, although it was non-lethal. The area had an objective to kill creatures worth almost 7,000 fame. I gave it a try. Everything seemed to be going just fine, but then I was surrounded by 3 undead and got annihilated. Barely made it out alive. I needed to bring proper armor to tackle this. I was wearing a gathering outfit after all. Shortly after, I found another wisp portal. I went inside, curious to see if there was anything different. I encountered new enemies, mainly thugs, called suppressors, multiple of them, and also a dryad. After taking it down, I could gather sky flower from it, but I didn't possess the right tool to harvest it. Besides that, there wasn't much else. I saw a huge deer though, which I skinned. Lastly, I stumbled upon a mysterious stranger, which just began to fish right next to me. He didn't attack. I wasn't sure if this was an NPC or a player, but I thought it was a great moment. I didn't find much wildlife, so I decided to exit the mists. Next time I logged in, I found out I got another skin, a monk's walking staff. Not sure what it came from either. While checking the market, I discovered there were Avalonian tools. These were special versions that gathered more yield. They were expensive, but I bought one. The trick for this one was it only worked for tier 4 materials or lower, same as my gathering set bonus. So I got to work. I even reached a new reputation level, gained some daily rewards, and kept grinding. Hunting tier 3 and 4 animals was so much more efficient, especially with the gathering yield bonus. The skinning process was much faster. Finally, I got the mastery for expert animal skinner, which let me use the tier 5 tools and gathering set. But more important than that, the stag dropped a rare item, a baby mount, an adept's fawn. This single item was worth over 100,000 silver. It could be placed in a pasture to grow into a tamed giant stag, which could be trained into a mount. Back to the market I went, checking the new tools. An expert Avalonian skinning knife cost over 400k. That was almost the price of the island upgrade. I decided to go for the normal knife and the new gathering set. Skinning was now much faster. I also unlocked Master River, which earned me more damage and defense against tier 6 creatures. I got so focused on hunting that one of the enemies destroyed me. Thankfully, it was just a knockdown. Afterwards, I found a hidden treasure containing some items worth a few thousand silver. Then, by mistake, I entered some kind of enemy camp. It was full, but I mean full of giants. I kept riding, trying to find an exit, until I hit a dead end. I was trapped and killed. When I managed to get up, I was too over-encumbered to move. They all slaughtered me. I was done for, stuck here forever. If I chose to die, I would lose all my items. But I kept going, falling down, walking, knocked down, moving. Until I managed to get some distance, summon my mount, and ride away. I didn't lose any items, but their durability took a heavy hit. Gotta be more careful next time. All my loot was worth over 260k just with this single run. One of the items I posted on the market got bought, making me complete a mission by owning 500,000 silver. I put on sale more hides and returned to work. I tried going to a yellow zone again, but ran into some problems with the mini-boss, getting down once again. I sold everything, repaired my items, and had just enough to afford the island upgrade. Thing is, my island was in Limhurst. Traveling there would cost me 14k silver. If I was going to be a gatherer, this city was the better choice. But buying a second island here would cost me 1 million. So that wasn't an option. All my loot was finally bought. I got over 700,000 silver and I upgraded my island. I also learned that if I left all my stuff in the bank, traveling to the island was free. Once there, I talked with Arnold. He gave me 38 hides and was able to advance to tier 3. I was able to buy a journeyman's journal this time. Then I placed a well, which had no functionality but looked nice, and a toolboard. Exploring the island, I saw a new merchant here. He sold farming supplies, seeds, animals, and decorative items. I bought some carrots for around 2,000 and began setting up the farm. I had to buy a good amount of logs and stones to finish the preparations. Once everything was done, I placed the carrot seeds, which would take 22 hours to grow. I also used focus to improve the yield. Next, I upgraded my house to tier 3 and started setting up the pasture. I bought some planks and a trophy, which I set up at my house. It increased my laborers' happiness slightly. With the pasture done, I went back to Bridgewatch to get the baby mount. But then, I found out that I wasn't able to place it on my farm. I needed to unlock the relevant mastery level in the destiny board. First, I had to harvest a good amount of carrots, then raise baby chickens, and so on. So, I bought as many seeds as I could, planted them, and watered everything. Now it was a matter of time. Unfortunately, I was broke, only having 70,000 silver. So I returned to the city to get my gear and do some hunting. I bought some more gamekeeper journals for the trip. This time, I stumbled upon a hyena. It provided a robust hide, a tier 6 material. Just a single unit sold for 1300 coins. I continued grinding and selling everything. I realized I didn't have an expert backpack, so I bought one. Trying a red zone once again, I reached the Shift Shadow Expanse. This area was quite busy and populated. The hides were completely ran out, and people were getting killed. You could see it in the chat. And the number of hostile people under the minimap was increasing. Nonetheless, I kept at it. The number of animals was higher, especially tier 5, which was great. But then, for a split second, I saw a name with a skull on the bottom of my screen. It was a griefer. I wasn't sure if he saw me, so I ran away as fast as I could and teleported back to the city, selling everything. To relax a bit, I hunted in the steppe biome and the mists. At one point, I entered a portal that led me to the road of Avalon. It was a black zone. The place seemed like something out of this world. It was not an open field. There were multiple interconnected hallways. In the minimap, I could see some Avalon chests. While heading to one, I had to fight some drones. They were really tough to beat. I didn't have my combat armor, so I was pretty weak. I managed to kill a hooded figure that was guarding one of the chests. But when trying to open it, it said that there were still guards around. The drones started swarming me. I didn't want to risk all my loot being this unprepared, so I decided to exit the portal. We'll try again once I bring better armor. Back to the mists, I hunted for a while until the notification said that the place was about to close. Running around, I found an uncommon mist. These had higher rewards than the common ones, although I didn't really find it to be much better, so I returned to the city to sell the hides I got, while also unlocking a new skin, a monk's robe. Enough of fooling around. I wanted to see what true danger was like by going into a proper black zone. I was curious to see what I could gather there. Going to Conqueror's Hall, I interacted with the Realm Gate. This would bind me for 7 days, preventing me to enter other city portals. I accepted. I then was transported to some sort of hub. There were other people, vendors, everything. I approached something called the Safe Portal. Using this would teleport me to a random Outlands destination, only for 10,000 silver. It would also have a portal to return for a certain amount of time. This was it. I went inside. I was officially in the black zone. Here, everything goes. You can't trust anybody. The place seemed clear at first, so I focused on hunting. The good thing about being here was not only the bonus to fame received, but also the great number of tier 5 animals with full hides. It was amazing. Opening the map, I realized how far away I was transported to. The world was immense. Someone died close by. I could see it in the minimap. Nonetheless, I continued hunting. I was having the time of my life, hunting tier 5 animals one time after the other. Full hides. I always stood close to my mount in case things went wrong. This couldn't be going any better. Couldn't believe I survived that. I was so distracted by checking the minimap that I didn't see him coming. That was really close. I had no idea he could kill my mount with one hit. It all happened so fast. I ended up selling what I gathered. I went back to my private island, talked to Arnold, and gave him a full journal so he would get to work. The carrots were ready. I harvested my first crop. It gave me back some seeds too. The profit was not bad at all. 2200 silver for selling them. And that's without taking into account the seeds. Some of the yields were greater than others even. One gave me 14 carrots. After gathering all of it, I got the Harvester Mastery. Now I was able to raise animals, but not the Adept's Fawn yet. The good news was I could buy a baby chicken. I placed it on the pasture. They were so small. Interacting with them, it showed the amount of time to grow and the hungry level. I gave them some carrots, but it said it wasn't their favorite food. I also nurtured them using focus so their offspring chance was higher. I bought as many chickens as I could and placed them all until filling the field. I also planted and watered all the carrot seeds. I ended up buying some wheat to feed the rest of the chickens with their favorite food. Now, all that was left to do was wait 22 hours. Next, I paid for another laborer, a second gamekeeper, and left the island. Back to the Bridgewatch portal, I used an invisibility shrine and tried the black zone once again. It was not long before I saw another player, but he didn't attack me. I tried moving to another area, but it said there were between 6 to 16 players. Too risky. I moved again to the northwest. This one had a 0 to 5, much better, so I began hunting. But then again, another griefer. I saw some tracks on the ground. They were from groups. I could even tell their size roughly. I began to panic. I tried teleporting away, but another player appeared for a brief moment. I was on the run constantly, coming across people all the time. It was impossible to do anything. At last, I was able to return to the safe zone. The black zone gathering was much more dangerous than I thought. I went back to hunt in the blue and yellow zones for a while. This was when I found out there were banks in some areas of the open world. If I retrieved any items, I wouldn't be able to teleport back to a city. I decided to buy a tier 5 Avalonian skinning knife to boost my gathering fame. Back to the island, I realized my laborers' happiness was down. They needed more beds. Checking the pastures, I realized the baby chickens had grown. I got the animal breeder mastery, which would allow me to raise the adept fawn. After taking all the chickens with me, I could barely move. I placed the grown chickens in the pasture, harvested the carrots, watered everything, and placed the baby fawn. It actually looked really cute. I gave him some food. It would take 2 days to grow. Once I bought a bed, I sold the rest, fed the animals, and reorganized everything at my house. Now that I had the Avalonian skinning knife, I solely focused on grinding to get to the next tier, going from blue zones to the mists. I even completed 20% of the gathering category of the journal, unlocking the gatherer's avatar. After long days of hunting, I finally unlocked Master Skinner. With this, I was able to wear a tier 6 skinning knife and outfit. I went to the market to buy everything and equipped it. Gathering was much faster now. I bought a new set of tier 5 tenacity armor and expert dual swords. I wanted to delve into dungeons, PvE, and even PvP, so I headed to a tier 6 yellow zone. I began with the dungeon. The entrance was guarded by a couple of giants, easy to defeat, but nearby there was some kind of huge tree creature. I got surrounded and took quite a hit. I managed to survive, but things were going to get worse. Further on, I fought 2 druids, which had some really nasty magic attacks. I had to rest before moving on. Right next to me, there were a couple of floating lights I've never seen before. They were hostile, but not much of a challenge. Things were going kind of well. I kept fighting until a group of 3, a bear, a giant, and a druid destroyed me. Thankfully, it was just a knockdown. Trying a second time was even worse. They sent me flying deeper into the cave, right into another group of mobs, where they demolished me. But I didn't surrender. On the third try, I focused on dodging the area attacks. First, the druid went down, and finally the other 2. After killing a couple more giants, I came upon a really tough one who seemed to have gotten pretty angry and went full on red and performed a huge spinning attack. I killed the guy, but died in the process. My armor kit wasn't the best. I needed more healing abilities. I had none. Continuing on, I stumbled upon another one of those angry giants, which did the spinning attack again. This time, I made sure to keep my distance, evading most of the damage and finishing him off. Nonetheless, this dungeon kept throwing me to the ground. I fought 2 giants at the same time, and I got defeated once again, but I got up, constantly fighting, until it was time for the boss fight. It was hard, but I managed to complete the dungeon. Exploring the open world, I came across a Hellgate, a 2v2 portal, but I needed to be in a party in order to enter, so I kept fighting more crooks and mobs, until I found a free PvP area right next to a pikeman. I killed one of the guards in the entrance, easy enough, but inside it was a disaster. The boss was really strong, and not only that, another player joined. I was too injured to resist and got knocked down in the process. I tried a second time, but same thing. So I moved to a tier 5 area, coming across what looked like a mini boss. It had some golden glow coming out of it. I took it down without much problems and got a jacket as loot. After fighting another mini boss and getting killed, I went to buy another gear set called Stalker. The jacket had an electric field ability that meant more damage. I also bought the Helion set to try out and see what I liked the most. It turned out to be quite interesting. I was able to use a smoke bomb that made me invisible, and it stopped all the mobs from attacking me. It also had an ability to mark a target and teleport right to it. Could be good for PvP. Back to my island, I gave some journals to my laborers, collected the eggs from the chickens, and from what I gathered, they weren't really valuable. The market price for the eggs wasn't good, and I saw no use for it. Meanwhile, the carrot business was great. The harvest always gave lots of crops and multiple seeds. It was all profit. After taking care of the island, I went to the faction NPC and enabled faction flagging. From now on, I could attack and be attacked by opposing factions on the open world. Following this, I went to the travel planner to return to Ridgewatch, but it turns out I couldn't fast travel to the city of a rival faction. Makes sense though. So I went to the market and bought a full set of everything again. It was time to try the arena. I could sign up for an unranked 5v5 match. I needed to choose a role between a fighter and healer. If I didn't play my role, I would be temporarily banned, so I chose fighter. While waiting for the queue, I was able to leave the city and continue doing my things while I found a match. Thanks to enabling faction flagging, I had a new UI in the top of my screen, showing some flags and a bar. It represented our outposts in the area. Going to Aspenwood, 2 out of 5 outposts were ours, and 3 were controlled by another faction. While checking the map, I saw a world boss on Inis Mon. At the same time, I saw one of the outposts in the minimap being contested. I tried to help, but I arrived late. We seemed to have won. I began heading northeast to the other outpost. Then, I got a notification for the arena fight, but at the same time, I came across a rival player. We began fighting. I thought I had it, but I was nowhere near close on that 1v1. Next, I went to another contested area on the map, and this one was a huge battle. Chaos. Dozens of players battling out. I couldn't make out what was happening, but it was amazing. I jumped right in trying to give a hand. At one point, I got stuck alongside the others. It was a mess. Somehow, I managed to assist in knocking down an enemy at one point, and we won the battle. After this, I wanted to check out Inis Mun, the place with the world boss. It had a free PvP area, so I went in and tried fighting 3 giants, but I died, like instantly. The mobs had those strange symbols on top. Maybe they were stronger versions. After all, it was recommended to come with 10 players to fight the boss. Heading to another outpost, I stumbled upon a bunch of other mounted players going to the same place. We all arrived at the fort, and it was insane. Once again, utter chaos. It was hard to aim at the actual boss, but we defeated it and captured the place. I continued with them, and it was fun, but I didn't really feel like I was doing much, so I returned to Limhurst. While waiting for my arena match once again, I talked with the faction NPC. It seemed my rank was mercenary, and I had gained some points thanks to helping capture those outposts. It seems I could use these points to buy some faction rewards too. While waiting for the arena queue, I wanted to try an undead dungeon, but I couldn't even survive the entrance guards. Even though they were tier 4, they annihilated me. It was recommended for multiple players. Just right after that, I got promoted to recruit because of just being in the faction. And then the match was found. I had no clue what to do at first. There were 2 teams and 3 different zones to capture. The team that reached 0 points lost. I didn't knew that at the time, so I focused on getting kills, which I did, but I also died a lot. I tried sticking with the team as much as I could and focusing on attacking the healer whenever possible, but in the end, we lost the match. At least I had a taste of the arena. While farming some mobs in the open world, I completed the Adventurers Challenge and won a gallant horse alongside more stuff, including a new avatar ring. Next thing I wanted to focus on was the mists. I needed to gain standing by doing activities there to unlock a place called Brazilian. I freed captured wisps and went to a mob camp. It was one of those free PvP areas. The objective was to kill the creatures until reaching a certain amount of fame. Everything was going fine until I saw a mysterious stranger. Back to the market, I wanted to re-evaluate my loadout to mix and match different armor pieces. I bought a mercenary jacket. Its ability was called Bloodlust, which restored health when I dealt direct damage. Then I bought a hunter's hood for its retaliate ability, increasing damage resistance and returning 85% of incoming damage. Lastly, I used soldier boots, but I needed to unlock the mastery to wear higher tiers. So I bought what I could and went out to train, kill some wolves, clear the dungeon, and unlocked not only tier 3 but also tier 4. Now I was able to wear adept soldier boots. Here is also where I learned about enchanting. By using runes, I could bring the item power of my tier 4 boots to 800, which was around the same as a tier 5, but much more cheaper. The next time I logged in, the new Abyssal Depths update was live. I started getting masteries all of a sudden. This was because the devs changed the way learning points worked. Before, I needed to get 20% of the total fame required to use them, but now I could use learning points at any time to get 5 times more fame throughout that level. I activated a quick learn for Grandmaster Animal Skinner. Next time I gathered, I would get 5 times the fame. Also, the interface changed a bit, looking nicer. We'll see more of this update in a bit. I went to my island, got the hides from my laborers, advanced one to tier 3, harvested my crops, and checked the new animals. The adept fawn had grown, but now the market price was even less than before. Maybe I needed to make it into a mount. Before doing so, I decided to plant some wheat instead of carrots, since they were the favorite food of the chickens. Going to the saddler, I crafted a new mount, the Adept's Giant Stag. Its market value wasn't any better than the baby mount, but this was a mount I had grown. I liked the look of it. Following this, I upgraded my house, not once, but twice, reaching tier 5, more space. And I was able to hire a 3rd laborer. Now, back to the new update. I went to the new location, the Antiquarian's Den. Each city had one of these. The place was packed. Here, the big thing was called the Depths. Initially, you're trapped in a dungeon, where you have to fight to survive. When the exit appears, you can escape or go even deeper for better rewards. The lowest level had a big price. If you die, you lose all inventory items, but you keep your equipment. There were 2 modes, duos and trios. To enter, I needed a minimum of 900 item power. I only had 800, so I couldn't participate for the moment. But there was also a portal to a corrupted dungeon. These are solo PvE and PvP. There are multiple difficulties to choose from. I picked Hunter, where there is no item loss, only knockdowns. I went in. I needed to gain infamy by defeating enemies. Higher infamy, better rewards. And by gathering enough, I could provoke the demon boss to show itself. I also could invade other players, but for this try, I decided not to activate the shrine. First monster I came across was a huge lava monstrosity. There were some demon dogs too. Going deeper, I had to avoid the lava coming out of some kind of holes. Then I found a mini-boss, a demonic underlord. It was a fun fight. He had a few area moves I had to dodge and move around. I defeated him and got a good amount of infamy, plus opened the chest with around 25k worth of items. Interestingly enough, the next enemy gave me much more trouble than the mini-boss. This one was surrounded by multiple mobs, and it had some sort of chain attack that pulled me in. I had to rest to heal in the middle of the fight to survive. Nonetheless, I was able to defeat it. When reaching 50 infamy points, I got a notification saying that the rewards were increased. I kept going, even though I got knocked down by one of those nasty demons. I had my revenge. Finally, I reached 100 infamy, and this happened.
Another realm, another hero. So brave, so strong, so inconsequential, choosing death. Not many lived to see me inconvenienced. Subjugation is inevitable.
Did it. The chest had around 70,000 silver worth of items. I returned to the surface. With all that fighting, I unlocked Master Leather Armor. I bought the new set, except for the boots, since they were plate armor. I needed to get that mastery. I went for the second Corrupted dungeon run. This time, I activated the shrine to enable player invasions. Everything was going well, until I sensed an evil presence. The invader was a ranger, launching arrows at me. I jumped at him, did a good amount of damage, but then he disappeared. My abilities were on cooldown, so I started to run, but ended up going into the monsters, where I got surrounded and died, getting kicked out of the dungeon. After buying the expert soldier boots, I took a third try, this time without the invasions. I confronted a new final boss. With this victory, I bought Master Dual Swords. My item power level was over 900. I also claimed all my rewards from the Albion journal and used all the tomes. With that, I reached tier 6, unlocking Master Soldier Boots. My whole armor set was complete. Just when I was about to enter the depths, I saw a message on top saying that the region was overcrowded. There were so many people that the game wouldn't even load them. More than 500 in this single place. Once inside, I realized I forgot to equip the armor spells. There were question marks in the hotbar at the bottom. I tried fighting without knowing this, and I almost died. Once everything was fixed, I fought the monsters. But even then, I got knocked down. When I got back up, I was able to carry my own soul. After killing all the enemies, the altar came to life. It was a big creature. It watered me with some sort of perk, which I equipped. Continuing further, I found another place where I could put the soul I was carrying. This gave me a chest, but as I was opening it, the rival team appeared. I tried to fight, but they annihilated me. This was impossible to survive as just one player. Going outside the town, the sheer insane number of players was outstanding. I decided to continue my journey to unlock the lost city of Brazilian. Once at the mists, I stumbled upon a master cryomancer. It was a special mob, really tough. Knocked me down not once, but twice. Nonetheless, I wouldn't surrender so easily. he gave a lot of fame. It was quite an intense fight. After this, I freed some of the imprisoned wisps, twice. Then, I reached a free PvP zone. While fighting a tough mob, a player appeared. He even dismounted right next to me. I thought he was going to attack, but thankfully he didn't. After finishing the objective, I was able to open the chest and get the rewards. I had almost 4,000 standing with Brazilian, and I needed 50,000. There was a lot of work to do. After getting my skinning knife from the city, I went to another mist, cleared a small heretic camp, completing the objective, and opened another cache. I freed tons of wisps. Rinse and repeat. I traveled from one mist to the other. Things were going good. People were pretty peaceful until they were not. A guy with some crossbows started attacking me. I went around in circles trying to put some distance, even walking through the mobs, but the guy wouldn't stop. So I counterattacked, jumping at them. I almost got him, but I couldn't finish closing the distance, and I got defeated and kicked out of the mist. This was not the only time either. In the next PvP area, the same thing happened. I tried to stay away, even leaving the enemy camp, but he kept chasing me. Somehow, I managed to escape this time, but I was not done. I went back and I found this guy low on health in the middle of a fight, so I finished him off. It felt good. Unfortunately, I died seconds later by those same monsters, so I guess that's karma. I waited to get back up and finish the camp, but I wasn't fast enough. The mist closed and it kicked me out. All the time lost because of that griefer. I continued farming camps and liberating wisps, until I found a portal to a mist of epic rarity. Inside, I encountered tier 7 enemies. Liberating the wisps gave extra standing. This place was quite hard. The mobs were tough. I went down multiple times. It was almost impossible to beat some of the enemies. The higher tier really made a difference in power. The spellcasters were absolutely deadly, almost one-shotting me. My item durability was on the floor. I couldn't even mount up anymore. The item was broken. I had to exit the mists and return to the city all the way by foot. Took a while to do so. Once I arrived, I repaired my full set by paying hundreds of thousands of silver. Getting knocked out was not free. Going to the market, the place had so many people that this region was overcrowded too. I couldn't see anybody. I think this was the first time I could actually see the NPC without everyone blocking it. By now, I was halfway. I had 25,000 standing with Brazilian. I kept working on and on. After so much fame gathering and using the tomes from the chest, I was able to use tier 7 weapons and leather armor. Returned to the city to buy everything. It was really expensive. Hundreds of thousands spent. I still wasn't able to wear the higher tier soldier boots though, but I was looking good. Back to the island, I gathered all the earnings, took care of the crops and animals, set up some decorations, trophies and better beds before putting everyone to work. While farming on the mists, I saw a portal which I thought led me to the roads of Avalon, but it just teleported me to the open world. I was really up north for some reason, so I returned to continue working. Shortly after, I came across a turbulent wisp. I was able to pick it up and escort it. The objective was to bring it to a specific portal, but it wasn't easy, since I wasn't able to mount up on the way. I had to walk across the whole thing, careful not to stumble upon any players. I managed to deliver it, getting more standing. Afterwards, I opened a rare chest. The contents were worth almost 100k silver. I also unlocked Elder River. But not only that, I finally got over 50,000 points and reached the requirement to find Brazilian. I found the portal and got inside. The place was packed with people. It was a safe city like the others. The place had a market, a bank, crafting stations, everything. There was also a portal to the roads of Avalon. That's the next place I wanted to explore. Thing is, it was a black zone, and I didn't want to risk all my tier 7 gear. So I teleported back to Limhurst and grabbed my old set from the bank. Then I delved into the portal. I fought the enemies there and found hidden treasure. I also had a close call with some players, but I was able to escape. Took another portal which led me to some different roads. I wanted to reach a treasure chest, but I came across another person who was already fighting the enemies. This place was pretty crowded. Also, I almost died fighting just a single ranger. Checking the map, I saw an area that showed an animal hide icon. This place was full of animals, perfect for skinning, but I didn't bring my knife with me, so I just farmed mobs for combat fame and loot. Then I came across a wisp, but this one was a greater mist. The message said that small groups roamed there. I decided to go anyway, but indeed, as I was clearing a mob camp, I got attacked by not one, but 2 players, dying for the first time in a black zone, losing everything I had on me. To avoid losing valuable gear, I bought a whole tier 4 set to take with me and went to the Outlands to farm mobs. I wanted to reach tier 8, the maximum available. Thing is, this tier 4 gear was somewhat weak. Mobs knocked me down. Suddenly, I found a wisp. This one was a solo lethal mist, so hopefully no groups of players. The extra frame provider was great, but a convenient thing was that you could quickly buy the last set you lost back in the market, making the process a bit less frustrating. Taking the safe portal once again, I arrived at the new area I've never seen before. I fought some giant snakes for the first time. While exploring the black zone, I came across 2 guards watching over a bandit. I had the option to fight the guards, but I didn't survive even a second. My tier 4 gear set wasn't really working for me. Nonetheless, I kept going, but then this happened. The Outlands were ruthless, but I persevered. Next time, I found a lair map protected by some giants. Interacting with it revealed a solo boss lair. I had to walk quite a bit to get there. Once I arrived, it was time to fight. I completed a lot of missions by winning this. I continued clearing camps, fighting open world mobs, and I even came across a crystal cobra. I've never seen this one before, and I stood no chance against it. It looked really unique. I tried going for it a second time, but got knocked down again. I needed better gear, or most likely a group to take it down. At one point, I came across a player, but we didn't attack each other. That was surprising. Then, I was right next to a safe portal. My last objective was to unlock tier 8 gear, so I kept farming mobs in the black zone. I went to a solo dungeon. It was full of ghosts and undead. Once I killed the final boss, I got the big chest reward. I tried doing a second dungeon. I was able to progress here, but the boss was impossible to defeat for me. I had to retreat. After that, I spent days grinding mobs in the black zone, mostly in solo lethal mists, pushing towards my final goal. And eventually, I did it. I unlocked tier 8 leather armor, at least the head and the chest. I didn't quite reach the leg armor or the swords before finishing the 100th day, but I got close. I was happy with my time and my progress. Thank you for sticking around until the end, and huge thanks to Albion Online for sponsoring this video.